Germany, the Federal Republic of Germany. Okay, Bundesrepublik Deutschland, created out of the French, the British and the American zones, including West Berlin. Remember, the capital of East Germany is East Berlin. The capital of West Germany is not West Berlin. That would be stupid. That would be a provocative step too far. The capital of West Germany is Bonn, a fairly inconsequential town in the main heart of West Germany. Okay? West Germany is set up... Oh, remember, the Red Army are based in East Germany. The British, French and Americans have soldiers in West Germany. But they're not really any longer keeping an eye on the Germans. They're keeping an eye on each other. They're like forward bases. Yeah. When West Germany is set up, its constitution is called the Basic Law. It's not called a constitution, it's called a Basic Law, because remember, both sides technically have committed to the reunification of Germany. So it's called the Basic Law because that sounds less final. Okay? The Basic Law commits West Germany to reunification. It says that all Germans are citizens of the Federal Republic. That means if you flee as a refugee, you can instantly get a West German passport and start working. Of course, the East Germans hate that. They say it's a provocative step. The West Germans say, we're all Germans, of course you can have a passport. But one of the reasons so many people fled was that you could land in the main heart of West Germany, get a job, get benefits straight away. Okay? The West German constitution has a largely ceremonial president. Okay? The first president is a man called Theodor Heuss. He's nothing like Hindenburg. He insists on being called Mr. President. He proves that you can be a successful president and figurehead for the country without being an ex-war leader. The Chancellor, the first Chancellor, is Konrad Adenauer of the Christian Democrats. In fact, he's the Chancellor throughout the whole period that we study. He is a wily, skillful politician. Some people talk about Chancellor democracy with a dominant Chancellor. But Adenauer does not have the unilateral power that Chancellors in Weimar Germany could have. Adenauer has to answer to the Bundestag. It's not called the Reichstag anymore. Remember, in East Germany, you had the Volkskammer, the People's Chamber. You also had the Landeskammer till that was destroyed. In West Germany, you have the Bundestag. Okay? The Bundestag is the name of the parliament, elected by proportional representation, but with an element of first past the post and a 5% qualification needed. In other words, it's proportional representation, but in a way that removed the risk of having too many parties and localised parties, the mistakes of Weimar. Essentially, the Basic Law learns from Weimar. Also, if you are in West Germany and you want to be a political party, you have to commit to democracy or you can be shut down. The Socialist Reich Party, essentially a neo-Nazi party, had been shut down. The Communist Party was shut down in the mid-1950s, but only after it had gone through the courts. So you can't just shut them down, you shut them down legally. It's a very federal structure. So in West Germany, there is lots of power given to the regions. That's to avoid too much of an element of dictatorship, like Hitler and like East Germany. And that's why even today, local elections really matter in Germany, because the Länder have lots of power. Okay? So this is truly a democracy. Okay? The East says it's not, but it is actually a democracy. That's the constitution. Now, Adenauer wins the 1949 election, but only just. The man who led the Social Democrats, Karl Schumacher, he could have formed a government, but he was too principled and said, I don't want to form a coalition. I don't want to compromise. Adenauer said, I'll form a coalition. I will compromise. As a result, he forms the first government. He wins in 49, he wins in 53, he wins in 57, he wins in 61. He wins again and again and again and again. And he wins because of his massive economic success, because of huge improvements in living standards. And his slogan by 1957 is keine Experiment, no experiments. Okay? He also wins because the opposition are in crisis. The opposition are seen as too left-wing. The opposition are not seen as middle ground enough. It's only after they lose in 1957 that the SPD, the logical opposition party, have the Bad Godesberg Agreement, where they try and reposition themselves as a more middle-of-the-road party, a bit like Labour will have to do now that they've lost with Corbyn in power. Okay? By 1961, Adenauer wins again, but he is old. He is losing his touch. He's not handling the crisis in Berlin particularly well. He's toyed with being the president and then changed his mind. He's arrested editors of Der Spiegel for daring to challenge the government, and the SPD are resurgent. He wins in 61. So the Der Spiegel affair is the trigger that finally brings him down. But he wins in 1961, but he has to agree to go before the next election. And then the Der Spiegel affair is where they say he's got to go now because he's just been too heavy-handed. So is Adenauer a total success? In many ways, yes, but not totally. Looking at the change over time, there are times when he's less successful. Okay. What you have to bear in mind as well is that there is an economic miracle. The German economy in 1949 is shattered. No, in 1945 is shattered. But by 1949, the opportunity is there to recover. Why? Because Marshall aid means that West Germany is going to be pumped full of money. Bisonia has started the economic recovery. But then Adenauer, with his pro-Western policies, is very much a chancellor who knows that things need to recover. And the economic miracle means that unemployment all but disappears. That's why refugees can easily get a job, because they can appear and there are jobs for them. What it also means is that wages are quite low, but living standards are high. The German economy becomes huge. That means people have wealth. That ends the association of people in their mind that democracy equals Weimar equals the Great Depression. They understand that democracy can mean stability, that democracy can mean success. The economic miracle is absolutely crucial. Okay, it is a huge success, and it's a huge success because of the economy, but also because of what it means for policy and for politics. Why does West Germany accept democracy? Because Adenauer proves to them that democracy can make you successful and prosperous. Okay, lots of people are happy to leave politics to Adenauer, and they have this earn a mick policy without me, because they just say, well, he's running the show. You think about all the political adverts, it's like Adenauer's in charge. Okay, the economy is a huge success. Okay, but not everybody benefits. Remember, farmers aren't doing that well. And by the late 50s, it's felt that the economy is too skewed towards bigger businesses. And that's why, for example, the SPD become more popular, because some people feel we need a bit more balance in this economy. Yeah? But it's a huge, huge success, the economy, if you look at the mess it was in. Okay? Mm-hmm. Unemployment virtually disappears. You have what's called full employment. West Germany's GDP soars through the roof. Production goes up just a huge, huge amount. So the economy is doing really, really well. Okay? Now, let me just see. Sorry, everybody, I'm just looking something up. Yes. And just to remember, the person who is the economics minister under Adenauer is Ludwig Erhard. And Erhard he's the equivalent of the Chancellor of the Exchequer. But he's the man who embraces, trade with the West and things like that. If you think about Lenin and Trotsky, here you have Adenauer and Erhard, but they're just incredibly old. They're incredibly old people. But one is the political genius, and the other is the economics genius. Okay. Yeah. Now, what you also have to bear in mind is that you have political and social stability. You have political stability under Konrad Adenauer. Basically, the CDU just wins election after election after election after election. But also, extremist parties aren't allowed. Also, small parties merge themselves into the CDU because they see the way it's going. Okay, it's very difficult for small parties to really survive when there's a 5% threshold. So if you're a right-wing small party, you may as well join the CDU. In that sense, the CDU is what we call a broad church. Okay, there's lots of right-wing people. If you're a bit right-wing or a lot right-wing, the CDU is for you. That might be quite a catchy slogan, I suppose. So that's political. Social stability, yeah. Remember the Mittelstand, people aim to be middle class. It's quite a conservative society. Education doesn't really modernise. Education hasn't really changed. Education is still run at a local level. In terms of music, though, it's quite progressive. There's quite a lot of people listen to Elvis Presley, people listen to the Beatles, things like that. The church is quite powerful. Look at the name of the Christian Democrats, the CDU, the Christian Democrats. So you have that whole idea of social stability. Lots of people are quite happy just to stay at home and not change things. The CDU are quite a socially conservative party. Okay, the church is quite powerful. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So where are we up to? Oh yeah. So you've got political and social stability, but you have some rebellion amongst young people. Foreign policy. People always overlook Adenauer's foreign policy. Okay, because foreign policy doesn't really figure in much of the course, but it's actually named within the specification here. Okay. What you have to bear in mind is that Adenauer's foreign policy has three elements to it. One, closer ties with Western Europe and America. For trade, therefore recovery, and for protection. If you have protection, then people realise that Germany doesn't need to be a huge military superpower, which helps them accept that democracy works. And if Germany is protected, Germany is safe. If Germany is safe, people feel safe. If people feel safe in a democracy, that's good for democracy. What you also have to bear in mind is if there's security, there's more trade. They help create the European coal and steel community, which eventually becomes the European Economic Community, the EEC. Okay? So you have closer economic ties with France, for example. That is good for trade. Why does Adenauer do this? Because it's good for Germany's reputation. It's good for Germany's political stability, because Germany looks like it's regaining the world stage, a bit like after Locarno 30 years before. But also, it's very good for democracy. People will accept that democracy works because they can see that, hey, you don't have to invade a country to get on with it. Okay? Germany's economy benefits massively from these closer ties with Western Europe and America. Okay? Germany is at the heart of Europe, but to benefit Germany. Okay? They also eventually join NATO, which is a military alliance. Now, of course, that's controversial amongst some people. Theodor Heuss says this is bad, we don't want to have military links. But Adenauer says we need an army and we need to have friends, because NATO is about collective security, a bit like the League of Nations. An attack on one is an attack on all. And that makes Germany more secure, which aids investment, which boosts the economy. His foreign policy is all about German economic and political stability. And when you see Adenauer on the world stage like that, you accept that democracy doesn't mean weakness. Because people had said, well, Weimar was a joke. Hitler got respect by invading countries. Oh, Adenauer's got respect by not invading countries. Okay? Also within his foreign policy, he apologises to Israel and pays compensation for the Holocaust. Okay? You also have some very high-profile trips. Now, for example, the president, Theodor Heuss, he visits Greece and basically apologises for the Nazi occupation. The other aspect of foreign policy, so that's a huge success. The other aspect of foreign policy is the Hallstein Doctrine and the whole idea of hostility to the East. We refuse to recognise any country that accepts that East Germany has a right to exist. Okay? Hostility to the East. When Stalin seems to say, hey, should we merge the two halves of Germany around 1951-52, Adenauer says no. He is hostile to the East. Now, for some people, particularly by the time you get to the Berlin Wall, when people are getting cynical and disillusioned with Adenauer, they say, your hostility to the East is not good for Germany. It means that we'll never have a reunified Germany. Adenauer says, East Germany's lost. The communists are scary. This works. Okay? And it also ties in much more closely with the Americans, which is where he feels the future of West Germany is. Okay? They would rather not have a reunified Germany than have communist influence. This is where Adenauer's skill comes in, though. So he talks tough, and lots of West Germans who are scared of communism like it when Adenauer talks tough against the Russians. And Ulbricht hates Adenauer. Okay? But when it suits him, he will be friendly with the Russians. So in, I think it's 1955, Adenauer visits Moscow. Okay? It is a huge propaganda triumph for Adenauer. Adenauer in Moscow, the respect that he gets from lots of Germans for that trip is unbelievable. And he secures the release of prisoners of war and brings them home. Now, of course, that's controversial elsewhere in the world. The British have a newsreel which says, ex-Nazis coming back. But in Germany, in West Germany, they love it. The boys have come home. Adenauer has brought home the last prisoners of war. So in that sense, his foreign policy is incredibly, incredibly successful. Now, what you also have to bear in mind linked in with that is that because he is such good friends with the West, that boosts the economy. They have somewhere to sell all the things that they are making. Okay? So that's the economic success there. Rearmament to NATO, that's that whole idea of Germany gets its military back and Germany joins NATO. That's essentially part of foreign policy. Rapprochement with France, essentially they build friends with the French again. And it's no surprise that the French and the Germans are very close in the EEC and then in the EU. Both sides say, if we work together, we're less likely to fight. Okay? So in a way, why is democracy successful? Because Adenauer is a success. And people go, political, social, economic success? Hey, democracy works for us. This is really good. And in a way, that shows what a triumph Adenauer is, because he took a country with no inbuilt trust for democracy and he made it a democracy-loving country. And that's why he wins again and again, again and again. One final thing. He wins in 61, but then the Der Spiegel affair means he has to go. The Der Spiegel affair, where he basically seems to be trying to destroy freedom of the press, means that his time goes. He stayed too long. So was Adenauer a total success? No. But on balance, was he a success? Absolutely. The end.